All right, good afternoon, everybody. We have a full house virtual demo today, which is fantastic. A lot of people on the line, it looks like. We're going to go through an agenda of how the virtual demo will go, but I do want to do some quick introductions of the team here. So we have Greg Taylor. He's the lead engineer on the Dyna-Cut project. And our customer service, we have Samantha and Amanda will be helping us out today with the virtual demo. So thank you very much for that, guys. My name is Russell Carter. I am the Director of Marketing and Product Development for Martin Yale. Following that Q&A session, we were going to go into a production-style demonstration of the machine where we will actually program a job into the user interface here and allow it to run for a bit so you guys can see fully operational how the machine works in every angle from the machine. So. And then we will go back to a question and answer after the production demonstration. And at the very end, we will show the die removal. We get a lot of questions on die changes and how easy it is and how much time is involved. So we will show you that as well at the conclusion of the meeting. So what we're going to do then is we're actually going to go right into the production of it. So what I'm going to show you here is the job that we're actually going to be running for you today. So it is of a business card. This is a 13 by 19 sheet. It is a 20 up design for business cards. And the pile feeder is already stacked up, loaded with them. And that's what we're going to be running today. Before we actually get into the demonstration, I am going to show you and kind of walk you through the different levels and the components of the machine, because as the machine is running, we will be kind of focusing on different sections so that you can see how each of the systems of the machine work together and just how the machine operates in general. So what we have here is the pile feeder with an 8-inch pile feed capacity. You have your air suction feed system right after that. The ultrasonic double sheet detection system. There we go. We have our conveyor system and alignment table right after that. Obviously, your touchscreen user interface. One thing I'm going to stop and kind of pause on here and mention is these pressure gauges on top. Our competitors have these as well. The key difference is the competitors have it set at the factory. They are non-adjustable. Our pressure gauges are adjustable. And why that is important is because it opens up the range of what you're going to be able to run. If you're running 65-pound cover, business cards or whatever you got, you're not going to want to apply that same force that you're going to need to go up to 160-pound double thick cover, for example. The thicker material, the more force you're going to want to put on these cylinders. So again, the competitors factory set them. There's no play in it at all. Why that's really important is because it lengthens the life of your dies and makes those dies last a lot longer. So you're not putting more pressure than you need on those dies. So when you're running that 65-pound cover or 80-pound cover, whatever you got, you can custom that pressure to match that die and not just have an abundance of pressure on those dies that would shorten the life of your die. Another option, or another feature with the Dyna-Cut that comes standard is our scrap separator conveyor system. That comes as a standard. There's no option about it. It comes standard. Some of our competitors list that as an optional add-on feature, but that does come standard. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get a job set up here. Amanda, if you want to come forward here, we'll get kind of honed in on the user interface here. There we go. So there's a little bit of glare, but we'll try to work through it here. So you have, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a batch job here. So this button right here where my finger is, move down just a little bit. There you go. So it's batch on or off. So it's either on or off. We're going to go ahead and turn that on. And then we're going to do a batch delay, which is this button right there, batch delay. Now this is a numeric value. So it's between 1 and 99, 1 being the shortest delay, 99 being the longest delay. And we're going to go ahead and give it a 75 on the delay. Now that is equivalent to approximately 7.5 seconds between batches. And then right here, you're going to look at batch goal. We're going to go ahead and let's run 4. So we'll run a batch job of 4. So you have batch count on, batch delay at 75 or 7.5 seconds, and then a batch goal of 4. That's how you set up a job. Very, very basic. That giant green button in the middle says feed. I'm going to turn it over to Greg, and he'll go ahead and hit that button, and we will set this thing in operation. First thing you're going to notice, obviously, is that pile feeder coming into position. The sheets are being grabbed. There we go. So what we just got there, we have run virtual demos the entire week. This is good to see. We've run 9 virtual demos, and we had our first double sheet feed. So hopefully that's not things to come, but no big deal at all. So what that was, our ultrasonic detection system picked up 2 sheets that were being fed through. So we're going to just reset that real quick. There we go. And hit that again. So that pile feeder is going to raise up into position, get grabbed by the sheet feeder. And you can see, so we're going to count 4. There we go. There was a 4. There's your first pause after that batch. It's going to give you that 7.5-second delay. And your second sheet goes through. We're going to lift that the observation glass there, and you can actually see the sheets being fed through there. There was our second batch, and now we have that delay there. We'll wait till the third batch starts. There's the third batch going. Come down to the very end, and you can actually see at the very bottom, the scrap is being separated and folding into that waste bin there. And the cut finished pieces are being sent out on the table. Here comes our 4th or 5th batch. I lost count. And you can see them being shot out onto the table there for collection. And you can see right here, we just ran 6 or 7 batches. And so you can't see that very well, but there you go. Stack of business cards. So we just ran through in about a minute and 30 seconds, ran through about 100+ business cards. And that is the Dyna-Cut in action. So, all right, we got a couple questions that you guys can't hear here, but let's go ahead and get those answered. Okay. So the question is with our competition. So it's a write-in question. Can you talk about our competition with Duplo and Standard, and really what's our strengths and weaknesses against them? Okay, very good question. So I'll address that one by one. So we're in the different ballpark here. When you're talking Standard and Duplos and different competitors, they're kind of different. So we'll kind of answer that question one at a time. So with Duplo, for example, in the world of single die systems, Duplo under 100,000, Duplo is a very big name in the industry. That was one that we saw probably getting placed more than most, probably the most out of any competitor. So we really went after Duplo and looked at what their specs were, looked at what their machine can do, and really said we need to be there and better if we have a shot at getting the market. Price is not going to drive everything. We have to be better in terms of functionality and specs, and that's what we did. In terms of what Duplo can do and what we can do, there's really not a lot there. What we can do better than them is that maximum GSM range. If you want to compare the specs, you're looking at, they can do 6,000 cycles an hour, so can we. 14 by 20 sheet, so can we. Really, the similarities are pretty obvious when you go down the line. If you looked at our spec sheet versus their spec sheet, they're very, very, very similar. We have upped them in a few categories, and mainly in that max GSM range. So that's really Duplo. Really, we were out competing Duplo's machine hands down. The Standard Horizon machines are kind of in the next level, next tiered up. They do have some features, especially when you start looking at the dual die systems. I know they have a RD 3346, I believe, and a 4055 in a dual and single cylinder setup. You know, you're looking at price ranges on those machines between $120,000, $140,000, especially when you get into the bigger machines. We are not trying to compete with Standard Horizon on those machines. They are in another level. They have a lot more features, and you pay for those features when you do that. So there really is not a comparison there. We still beat them in a lot of specs, even though their machines are much more expensive than the Dyna-Cut. Our max GSM is still better than theirs. The speed, I think, is better, or it's at least the same. They don't do more than 6,000. I think last time I checked their spec sheet, it's less than 6,000 cycles per hour. So we're not really trying to compete directly with them. I think we are going to take some business away from them just because of the price point and the functionality. But we're talking about apples and oranges in terms of functionality and what you kind of pay for. Okay, so the next question is, can you show how the paper is registered to match up with the die? That's a good question. So I'm going to pull this one back out here. So this is the business cards that we just ran. Obviously, we have a registration mark. So on every sheet that you run, you're going to have a registration mark printed on the sheet. There's a sensor right before it goes through the cylinder. There's a sensor there that reads that and will adjust for up and down skew for digital print. So there's one adjustment that is done through the through that registration mark right there. Additional adjustments that we have, you have margin adjust and you have skew adjust that are manual adjustments that you'll set up prior to the job. You're going to get a baseline of where you're hitting, and you can just make those fine-tuned adjustments before you run your full job. And additionally, then in the user interface here are additional adjustments for micro tuning and micro adjustments to really get you the perfect cut that you're going to be looking for.
You run the cars in the opposite layout for your rows of 8.
Yeah, so you can absolutely do any layout you want. We have this 13 by 19 on a 20 up design to maximize how many you come on a sheet. But you can do a 12 by 18 or 11 by 17 or whatever you want, and it's going to obviously change the layout, but we chose this to maximize it. The key is, let me show you something else here. Let me pull this out of the scrap bin. This is what we call the skeleton. Okay, so this is the skeleton of a business card that we just ran. So all you need to make sure that you do when you're laying out your design, let me turn it right side up here, is make sure that you have gutters that run from leading edge to trail edge, that the stripper fingers that we have built into the machine are able to ride what we call the gutters. Those are the spacings in between the business cards. The minimum distance of those gutters needs to be 1/4 of an inch. If you have that 1/4 of an inch gutter and it runs the whole length leading to trail, then you're good to go and you can do whatever configuration you want.
Russell, will this also cut through plastic?
So we have tested up to 24-point thick paper. We have not tested yet plastic. We've tested laminated sheets. We tested very, very thick paper. If you have a very specific plastic application that you would like us to test, we'd be more than happy to do that with us. If you can get with us after this call, we'd be more than happy to test that for you, depending on how thick it is, and we can kind of go from there. If you want to get with your sales rep, or you can email us at info@martinyale.com with those specs, we'd be more than happy to get back to you and get that set up.
What is the max laminated sheet that we can do?
So we have tested very successfully. It runs with no problem at all. 100-pound cover with 1.5 mil gloss, double-sided. So total lamination of 3 mil on a 100-pound cover, and it goes right through it like it's not even there. We've gone up to a 100-pound cover with 3 mil at that thickness. Now you're talking 6 mil of lamination, plus you got a 100-pound cover. You're really starting to get thick there, and it's the lamination that's causing an issue. And it's not really an issue because it works. But these adjustable pressure gauges that we were talking about earlier, you have to put some pressure on there that is slightly above what we would say is our recommended pressure. And all that's going to do, it doesn't hurt the machine. It kind of hurts the die over the life of that die. So you're going to shorten that. It'll do that 3 mil. But if you said, hey, I'm going to be doing that all day, that's the only thing I'm doing, then you can expect the life of those dies to be shortened because of the amount of pressure you're going to have to cut through that. But we have done it.
Would you say that that's the one area that the standard does have an advantage of over ours? And I realize they're different machines, but
Yeah, I am not familiar, very honestly, with this, what standard can do in lamination. So maybe you could educate me a second. What are their recommended maxes on the laminated material?
I'll have to verify that, but I understand it's 5 mil with a 100-pound cover.
Okay.
Very thick.
Yeah. So I know on the standard horizons, I didn't know that exact spec for laminated. That's a pretty particular application. However, if you're talking 100-pound cover, you're looking at it's obviously a certain thickness. I think it's on the caliper 11 or 12 point, and then you're talking 5 mil. So you're up to you're getting pretty thick there. I know Standard Horizon maxes out at 400 GSM in terms of thickness. That's some pretty thick stuff. So if you could verify that, I'd love to talk to you. But yeah, 5 mil, you're talking 10 mil of lamination plus the 100-pound cover. That is some thick stuff. We've gone up to 24 point, and I know that is the industry's best at 24 point. I would, if Standard can do that, then I'm going to learn something today.
I'll verify.
Okay, I appreciate it. Any other questions? We have any typed in questions coming in? Guess not. Okay, so if there's no other questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back over to the back of the die here, so we can actually see, or the back of the machine, so we can actually see the die here. I have Amanda come around here. So we obviously have the guard normally that goes on here. We remove that just for observation here today and to show you how this works. The first thing I'm going to do when removing the die is hit that E-stop that kills the power to the machine. The second thing you're going to want to do is just to remove the pressure off of that cylinder. So now we're back to zero pressure. So what you can do now by removing that pressure, it allows you to move this cylinder extremely, extremely easy. This is a 300-pound magnetic cylinder, and you can see that I'm just moving it with my hand. So what you're going to do to remove the die is you can see right here where my finger is. There we go. That's the trail edge of the die, and that is the leading edge of the die, and that space in between is just where those two meet. All you're going to want to do is take a die tool like this, real thin piece of metal, comes from Atlas Dies, comes with your machine. Put it right there, right at that corner where that die meets and is being held in by the magnet, and slides right underneath that magnetic grip there. Once you have it started, all you're going to do is you can get your fingers underneath that and kind of break that magnetism, and you can kind of do a half pull and then half turn, and the die actually will just come out in a sheet here, and there's the die. So you can actually see the die that was wrapped around that magnetic cylinder. From this photo, you can obviously see the gutters in between the business cards from leading to trail edge, and that's what those look like as well. So that was the business card die. And then okay, just a second. And then, so you can, from there, you can, the replace die is just that exact process in reverse by rolling it back onto the cylinder. So we do have a couple questions that I think maybe got typed in.
Minimum gutter spec.
Yep, the minimum gutter spec is 1/4 of an inch.
Minimum length of stripping.
The minimum, was it 2 inches, 1.5 inches?
Are they talking material or
Yeah.
actual sheet size?
The sheet size. Well, the piece size.
Piece size.
That's what I thought. Okay, so if you're talking piece size, I'm talking to our engineer as well as reading your question here. The question is, what was the minimum stripping size? I believe your question is relating to the minimum size of piece that you can strip. It's 2 inches. That gives you space for the rollers to actually grab that piece. You can go smaller than that, but it'll be a non-stripping application, and the whole sheet, the piece will be cut, but the whole sheet and the skeleton would come out onto the table, and you would just have to remove it by hand.
How do you ensure the die is put in straight?
So the question is, how do you ensure you put the dies in straight? Very good question. So like a lot of our competitors, we also have guide pins that go in the dies. So I can see here. The dies have those 3 holes on the top. You would just line that up with the guide pins, put the die on, remove the die pins, and then you roll it up pretty simply. Any other questions that got typed in there? Okay, I think that is the gist of the typed questions. Do we have any other questions?
On the guide pins, is that a automatic feature of the control panel, or is that a physical lever that you push down, or what?
Well, the guide pins that I'm referring to that go into the cylinders are actually guide pins. They look like this, if you can see that. So those literally go into the cylinder, the magnetic cylinder, and then you put your die on, and then once you get it started, once you get that die started on that magnetic cylinder, it's not going to go anywhere. So the guide pins help you get the perfectly straight alignment. And once it's on a little bit, you can just pop those pins right back out and roll it up, and you have perfect alignment every single time. No problem at all.
Talk about dies, how long it takes to get a die.
Oh, okay. So we got a write-in question about the dies, the die ordering process, maybe how long it takes to get a die. That's a really, really good question. So we have partnered with Atlas Die, like I said, just in northern Indiana here. The process from ordering a die to when you actually get your order in to shipping is about 3 business days. It actually is shorter than that. I like to stick with that 3 because I like to build myself a cushion, even though I'm not the one shipping you the dies. If you get a custom die, they said on another call earlier today, it's actually 1 to 2 business days for custom dies. If you want one of our standard dies that we have, we are stocking those. So if you order one of those, you get it shipped same day, more than likely.
We've got 2 more.
Okay.
They want to see the die going back in.
Okay.
And what happens if you forget to take the pins out?
Okay. So we have 2 questions, and they're both relating to the die and the die putting the die back in. So let's just go ahead and do that. The question is, one person said they'd like to see the die getting put back in, which is no problem at all. And then the second question was, what happens if you forget to take the pins out? So I'm going to have Amanda come around here again. I know. Right, exactly. So I was just talking to our engineer there, but you guys can't hear him. So what I'm going to do is the first thing you want to do when you put the die back in is you want to remove the stripper fingers. It's just a lot easier to put that die back in if you remove it. So all that is 2 set screws that you're going to put on here. Loosen the set screws and your stripper bar pops right out. So we're going to set that off to the side here. Okay. And there's my pins. So then you're going to see, I'm going to move the cylinder here. You can see that on the camera. There are 3 holes right here on the actual magnetic cylinder. That is where you're going to take the 2 or 3 pins that you need to get that perfect alignment. For time's sake, I'm just going to do 2 because it doesn't need to be dead on, but it would be even with the 2. So I'm going to screw the left one in. There we go. So these are screw-in. And then the one over here on the right, we'll take another pin and we'll screw this one in. Yeah, let's get that tightened down here. Okay. So then what you're going to want to do is you see this bar here. You're actually going to move the cylinder so the pins are below that bar. From there, you can pick up your die, and we're actually going to go in between these sets of rollers here. So put the die in between the rollers, let that feed down, and then you're simply going to line up these holes on the die with the holes on the cylinder itself. There we go. And you can hear that slap into place. And then all you need to do is just remove these pins from the actual cylinder here and then roll it back up. Just like I said, it's just a reverse process using the guide pins to get you that started. So obviously you can already see that is, I'm unscrewing the guide pin, but we have 2 to 3 inches of magnetic that is holding the die in place. So it's already going to be straight no matter what. Yeah, we'll just undo that and I can show you how to roll that up. And there we go. Okay. I'm gonna get it. Okay. So there's your 3 holes. The die is being held on obviously already by the magnetic die, and you can see that I'm just turning it right back on, and you heard that slap back into position. And if you see, you can get a close up right there of that down below here. Oh, there we go. So you can see the alignment was perfect, even though I only used 2. The alignment was still perfect on that die. The next question I got asked was, what happens if you forget to remove the dies, the guide pins, the guide pins of the die? You wouldn't actually be able to roll that cylinder all the way around and put the die, because your pins are sticking up and it's going to hit. Obviously it's not going to do a full revolution with those guide pins in. So, certainly you want to remove them, but if you tried to do it without it, it would tell you and just stop it. So all of the question is, who punches the holes in the dies? Anything with the dies themselves come from the die maker. In this case, it was an Atlas die.
Do you have fiery or personal plugins for the standard dies for easy layout?
So the question is, do we have any fiery system or any kind of design outlines for the dies themselves? The answer to that is no. We want you guys to work custom dies. We want you to work directly with the die maker. We do not make the dies. We don't have any die layout designs. The die makers do. So if you need something custom, obviously above the standard book of dies that we have, that we stock here in-house, anything above that, we'd be more than happy to give an introduction to the die makers, and they can easily work with you to get your layout and everything else. That's what they're there to do, and they do a real good job of it.
Maximum sheet size, you can say 6,000 cycles per hour.
So maximum sheet size at 6,000 is going to be that 8.5 by 11.
These book of dies.
What's that?
The book of dies, will we have access to that?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So the Dyna-Cut.com, if you want to go look at them right now, that's the easiest way to go see what those book of dies are, the standard dies. It's just right on the Dyna-Cut.com. That would be the easiest way. It's all clearly laid out right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
You drop a pen in the machine. Is there any place where you get stuff that you can't get to?
Drop a pin in the machine, like a guide pin? Okay, the question is, if you drop a guide pin in the machine, is there any place for it to get stuck? The answer is really no. That's a good question, I guess. The guide pins, once they come out, if they fall, there's really no crevices or anything like that that's going to interfere or, have them be, lost in the abyss somewhere. So I guess the answer is no.
Is there anything else that holds the die in place other than that?
No. So look, this magnetic cylinder, the entire cylinder. Okay, so let me ask the question, because I realize you guys can't hear that. So the question was, is there anything else holding the dies on besides the magnetic cylinder? The answer is no. These magnetic cylinders, the entire way around the entire cylinder is fully magnetized with individual magnets. They are putting an immense amount of grip on these dies. Not only do they not need magnetism or any additional things, they're doing such a good job holding those on. If you the first time you put your hand on one, you'll understand how much holding power that magnet has.
What's the speed of the machine for a 14 by 20?
Yeah, so I was wanting to get back to that. So the question was, what's the speed of the machine at a 14 by 20? And I thought that question was going to come up. At the 8.5 by 11, you're going to get that full 6,000 revolutions an hour. If you go to the max size, it's exactly half of that, and it's going to get you 3,000 revolutions an hour, which is based on how the machines are designed. All die cutters do the exact same thing in the single cylinder Duplos. If you've got 14 by 20 thermotype Organa, everybody gets cut down to 3,000 revolutions an hour at your max sheet size. Anything really above an 8.5 by 11, you're going to be at that 3,000 revolutions an hour, which is blistering fast. It's pretty darn fast. I think that is the last type-in question. Do we have any other questions from the audience here that voice in or write in? All right, I think that is it. Well, guys, that concludes the virtual demo. I certainly appreciate you guys dialing in here and allowing us to showcase the new Dyna-Cut. If you have any questions at all, obviously contact your local dealer or sales reps in the area, or again, you can reach directly out to Martin Yale customer service or info@martinyale.com, and we can get you going. So appreciate you guys tuning in.